You're listening to the Cross-Check NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clarke.
Welcome to the Cross-Check NHL Show. I am Andrew Berkshire from Game Over Montreal on SDPN, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Mary Clarke from For the Win. It's the playoffs. We're almost at the end of the first round. One team has been eliminated already. Every other series is up for grabs for the most part. Is it finally the year that the Maple Leafs move on? We're going to talk about that, as well as the Rangers and Panthers getting back in their series, the Avalanche moving on first, as they did last year as well, and then we'll go into our pop culture roulette segment to end the podcast off. But before we do that, Mary, how's your week going so far?
Good. I'm still sleeping over my friend's house to take care of their dogs, but by the time you guys hear this on Friday, it will have been my last night there. So I will finally get some, full night's sleep. Luna won't be so cranky that I'm not at home with her all the time. But yeah, things are good. We're obviously recording this on Thursday, so there's a lot of important games tonight, especially the Maple Leafs, but this is kind of the perils of us being busy and having to, record a day early because our schedules don't align. So sorry if the stuff we talk about is inaccurate by the time you guys hear this, because it is what it is. And that's kind of how it is with the playoffs. So I guess we'll do our best, but I'm doing good otherwise. It's a nice day outside, but I am tired. But that's okay. Playoff hockey is sustaining me. So I, couldn't be better if I'm being honest. It's a lot of series are on like a knife's edge, basically. We're about to find out if teams like the Maple Leafs are going to do it, or will they blow it? Who's to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's that time of the year, right? Everything's happening fast and frantic, and you can put something out in the next minute, it's no longer relevant. But it's fun. It's the most fun time of the year to cover hockey, honestly, between the first round going on, and then there's the excitement about the draft and free agencies looming. Everything's speculation. It's a fun time. But let's get right into it on the Maple Leafs, because they won Game 5 in pretty interesting fashion. They came out so flat in the first period. It was the worst period of play that they've had so far in the playoffs, and they looked cooked. Down 2-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. There hasn't been a single lead change through the first 4 games of that series. And then all of a sudden, third period turns around and they come at it. They take the lead. They get it up 3-2. Next shift, Ryan McDonagh scores, and it's tied again. And you're like, oh, here comes the mental collapse of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Some, adversity happens, and all of a sudden they can't hang. Turns out, all you need is one little break from Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, and they get that leading goal again, and they hold the fort for the final 5 minutes of the game. They have the edge, and it seems like, if you look at the way that game was played, after the first period, Toronto at even strength was completely dominant. I wonder if we're finally starting to see this team turn the corner.
Yeah, that's the big thing, isn't it? It feels like this is the year that things are finally coming together. Their stars are playing like they were promised to be, basically. The whole thing last year when they bowed out of the playoffs is they couldn't get scoring when they needed it. They fell flat in the big games. And the Game 5 kind of looked to start that way, where, they came out basically looking lethargic, just basically being run over by Tampa Bay. But a switch flipped between the first and the second period, and then Tampa was on the back foot. And yeah, the Maple Leafs actually dealt with adversity well for the first time in the playoffs and for what feels like forever. But this is the big test. Thursday night's game is the big test, because they have held leads in series before, but have blown it. Will this be the night that they, actually take that step forward? I'm really excited. I'm I mean, everybody should be looking forward to this game. It's gonna be incredible. And by the time you're hearing this, it probably was incredible. And they also, of course, have the whole thing of the Lightning and Vasilevsky have not lost a game coming off of a loss themselves. So like if the Maple Leafs are gonna do it, now is the time, because the narratives are starting to unfold. I mean, sure, they won't be in Toronto to do it if they do it in Game 6, but like you strike at the heart of Tampa Bay and knock them out of the playoffs in their home building. That would be an incredible story. And of course, obviously, just them making it to the second rounds. Like, yeah, it's hard not to find some belief here, just in the way they've been playing and the way they've looked. I mean, Austin Matthews' reaction after his go-ahead goal was like,
that was such a great celebration.
So good. And you can tell that it means so much to them. It's just the vibes just feel different around this Maple Leafs team now. I wouldn't be surprised if they end it in 6. But also, there's that small sliver of doubt that's in my mind that's like, how did they blow it? And like I said, I mean, Tampa Bay's been incredible coming after a loss. And I think we all want this to go 7 just for, I'd love to see this series go on forever. I think I said that on Twitter. And people were like, it's just like, what is it, Sisyphus in, Greek myth of rolling the boulder up and going back. It's just, I just want this series to continue for my own enjoyment, but I know that Maple Leafs fans, would not be happy. But yeah, this has been such a fun series. I hope it goes 7 for the entertainment factor, regardless of who wins. But I don't know, the vibes are shifting in Toronto's favor, and I hope for their sake they're able to that this year is different for them. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking back on last year, the vibes sure looked great when they were up 3-1. Right?
Yep.
There was nothing going wrong for them whatsoever.
Well, of course, I mean, Tavares was out, so
sure.
I mean, they were winning the series, but Tavares was out.
Tavares didn't show up until Game 5 of this series either.
True.
He's been terrible. And I know he got his goal last game. I'm not convinced that puck touched him at all. I'm pretty sure that's William Nylander's goal. His best play of the game was actually the assist on Morgan Rielly's goal, which was truly fantastic. But it's the first time this whole series where I've even noticed John Tavares outside of winning faceoffs. And like, winning faceoffs has value, but not $11 million a year of value. I'll tell you that much. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that he's showing up though, because it seems like if they can get Tavares and Matthews going at the same time, that becomes something that I'm not sure this Lightning team, that to me still looks tired, can manage. There are times where the Lightning are still dominant and they can get things done, and they're so talented. They're such a great team. But to me, they still look a little bit exhausted, especially Andrei Vasilevsky, who has not been great in this series. I think that's been the biggest thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, is they've been able to score goals when they've needed to score goals, even if they haven't been able to come all the way back in games. I think they've put up 3 every single game, except for maybe 1. No, they put up 3 every game, I think. That's a good sign for them. Now, Tampa Bay hasn't lost 2 in a row since they got swept by Columbus in 2019. So it's a huge challenge to get this second win in a row. But the problem is, I think if it goes to 7, the Leafs aren't going to win. I think that's the thing that's in the back of their mind. They're always losing in 7. If they can just play a good game in Game 6, I think they're going to win this.
Do you think it's going to be like first goal wins on in Game 6 just because of the mentality thing? I mean, Toronto has come back in this series and made games close, and then obviously in Game 5 took was able to come back and then take the lead. But do you think it's one of those things where Game 6 is like a momentum game? Like or will Toronto not even care? They're just like, we just want to win type of thing.
I think for the next one, Toronto needs to score first.
Okay.
I think they did their battle back and coming back on the Lightning. I don't think that they're going to want to do that again, because I feel like the Lightning are a team that game by game, they fix mistakes that they made the previous game. So if they end up having to defend a lead, they're going to find a way to defend it a lot better than they did in Game 5. I think Toronto needs to come out front in the first period and make the Lightning play loose, make them play more of their game, right? Which has been inconsistent for the Leafs to be able to exert that on the Lightning. And like it totally makes sense, right? These are two relatively evenly matched teams. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think overall the Lightning are a better team, but right now their star players are not in the shape that you would expect for a team in the first round, just because they played so much hockey lately. One thing I love is the natural stat trick. If you go to their homepage, they have series reports that specifically take the data from each series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super interesting to see, like, the Tampa Bay Lightning have a slight edge in like expected goals for the series at even strength at just 50.28%. So it's essentially even.
Yeah.
And then you go to all situations, and then the Leafs are ahead 51.32%. So again, everything is so close in this series. And it makes sense. It's gone back and forth. It's been such a great series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see how it ends. But I'm rooting for the Leafs specifically to support the shows that I've launched, just like I'm rooting for Calgary. I would like to see it, and also I just want to see what it looks like when they finally do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be obnoxious.
Yes,
it's going to be fun for a day, and then awful for the entire next year.
Yes, I mean, there is something about like sports misery, because we've all had sports misery. We're all in a perpetual state of sports misery until, you know, a team that you like does something great, and that's like not often, because that's how sports are. Unless you're, you know, from Boston, where they just continuously crank out championships or whatever. But like, there's something to be said about watching sports misery, and, you know, because in the timeline where the Leafs lose this series, the fallout from it could very well be really entertaining to watch. And losing can make good content, but also winning can also make really good content too. I mean, you know, we've talked about, you know, Steve Dangle a bunch on the show because he's directly related to the stuff you do, Andrew. But like, you know, I think I'll probably tune in to, you know, the LFR if/when the Leafs win. Like, I want to see it. I want to see it. Like, yes, it will be obnoxious to certain points, but, you know, it's just nice to enjoy vague, you know, sports happiness. Like, I could feel the sports happiness radiating from Toronto if this happens. And you know what? It might make me feel just a little bit better because they're enjoying some happiness. So I don't know, that both options are equally appealing in terms of entertainment value for different reasons. And I think that's why this series rocks, because there are no losers here for either of us, Andrew, I think, because we're kind of neutral parties. If you're a fan of the Leafs, you obviously are incredibly invested. If you're a fan of the Lightning, though, you're probably like, all right, if you lose, like, you won back-to-back Stanley Cups, you can't be too mad.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't even think, like, if the Leafs do get past the Lightning, I don't even think they'll forever be known as the team that the Leafs finally won against. I mean, this series has shown how back and forth it's been. I mean, there's no
I think if
shame
anything,
for
people
here.
will try to discredit the Leafs because the Lightning are not at their peak, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's more likely to be what happens, and I can't see Leafs fans really caring about that, just because it'll be the euphoria of actually finally doing it, right? And even if the Lightning aren't at the best that they can be, they're not a soft matchup.
Oh no, not at all. This has been such a fun, probably the most fun playoff series we've had, I think, in a while too. Like, just from, you know, the narrative standpoint, the entertainment factor, the back and forth, the amount of goals that's been scored. It's just, I don't know. It's just been really great hockey to watch. Like, and like, it's just been fun. I mean, like, I don't think we're going to talk about Calgary-Dallas series, but that series has had like the least amount of fun possible, because they're all like very like 2-1. I think like the last score was 3-1 games. They're not very entertaining games.
Game 4 was a great game between Calgary and Dallas. It was like really high tempo. Calgary really pushed the play the whole game. And then I expected that to continue in Game 5.
Nope.
And it was 2 periods of just an absolute slog, and then I fell asleep.
Yeah, I had it on TV while I was like finishing up work, and I'm like, man, this is not nearly as exciting as the games that came before. But yeah, it's just gonna be a shame when the series ends. But I'm looking forward to seeing the result, because for me, they're both really they're going to be fun either way in terms of just like me watching sports misery or me watching, people being happy about sports. Like, I don't know. I don't think you can lose in this series unless you're a fan of either team. But even if you're really the only people that can lose is Toronto, because if you're a Tampa Bay fan, you probably just don't care. It's like me after the Eagles won the Super Bowl and then lost the next year. I was like, who cares? We still have our Super Bowl. Doesn't matter. So you get a little bit of leeway when you have championships like that, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, we talk about what's going to happen to the Leafs fan base after this. And here's the thing. Leafs Twitter is already insufferable. Will they be more insufferable after this? Yes. However, I think this last year, after they blew it against the Canadiens, was the most insufferable they've ever been. And it's not because they're happy. It's because they're miserable and can no longer take a joke. Whereas that franchise or that fan base in general, I find is one of the best fan bases at taking a joke. Mm-hmm. So maybe a little bit of happiness allows them to take a joke again and they'll be better next year. I think if they lose this year, it's going to be a rough time to follow so many Leafs fans on Twitter as I do. I'd have to start muting, I think, or at least muting keywords because I can't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. But, it's just fun. Hockey is fun. The series has been great. I don't know. I want both. It's so weird. I want both outcomes to happen because I just want to see what happens in like each timeline. Like we've talked about, Multiverse of Madness and all the Marvel stuff. I want to see both timelines and see where they lead just because, I don't know. It's really interesting to me. Like the narratives of the series have just been really awesome.
Yeah, 100%. All right. We're going to talk about the Rangers and the Panthers and of course the Penguins and Capitals in a second here. But first I got to tell you about Built Bar. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of a birthday cake frosting and then opening your eyes and realizing that it was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That's what it's like to eat the birthday cake puff from Built. I just received my birthday cake puffs, and I've never had anything like this before. They're available right now, and we can't promise that they'll be there tomorrow, so get them today at Built.com. And if you haven't tried the puffs, I'll let you in on a little secret, because that's what friends do. A chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bar. Yeah, you heard me. Delicious flavored marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. Make every day your birthday with Built's birthday cake puffs. Built has taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake and enrobed it in 100% white chocolate and added sprinkles. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Go to Built.com and get birthday cake puffs right now. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making the Cross-Check NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday, but make your next listen Locked On Now, the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of each NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and there's nothing else like it anywhere in the hockey world. All right, Mary, the Rangers and Panthers both ended up winning Game 5. Obviously, the Rangers are in a little bit better position than... the Panthers are in a little bit better position than the Rangers are.
The Rangers, well, I mean...
Yeah, I've got it backwards.
It depends on what you consider a better position, because I'm sure we're going to talk about the stuff that happened to Sidney Crosby.
Yes,
so.
I think that's actually the main story of the two. Let's go through the Panthers and Capitals first, because I was doing I was in a meeting last night trying to sort out stuff for the Game Over Calgary show with the host, Audie James, and Jesse Blake was in there too, and I was just kind of like keeping an eye on the scores while we were figuring things out. And I saw that the Capitals were up 3-0, and I was like, come on, Panthers, you can't be this awful. And then the Panthers come back and score 5 straight goals, which, to be fair to the Panthers, is a very Panthers game.
Oh, yeah.
Right? but they have looked vulnerable in this series. I have not been impressed.
Yeah, it's been a real shame. I can't believe, I know you talked that Claude Giroux was probably part of the reason, but I can't believe the Panthers would do this to me, to all the Flyers fans, to Claude Giroux. I can't believe it. Though I think Flyers fans are probably at fault here because we put all of our hopes and wishes into the Florida Panthers because Claude Giroux is on the team. And, if it's Philadelphia, bad things happen here. And it is just, we're just stuck in a cycle of sports misery all the time. So I think we jinxed the Panthers, but they were able to come back and win. But yeah, they've just not looked impressive. Really. Like, I mean, of the teams that are in these playoffs, the Avalanche had a really easy road with Nashville, but like,
And we'll talk about that in a minute.
yeah, but like, I don't know, like the teams we expected to be impressive outside of the Avalanche, outside of them sweeping, they just looked dominant. And I know, like, we've talked that like Nashville wasn't in the same tier as the Avalanche, but like just like the teams we thought were gonna be, the favorites or more dominant just haven't been. I mean, like even the Calgary series, that they've just had a stagnant offense. It's just been a very weird playoffs for some of these teams. And yeah, Florida looks, you're right, vulnerable. Like their weaknesses are on full display here. I mean, and the fact that their offense has not been, they were able to come back in game 5 and, now have a series lead, but like, man, it's not looking great. They have to really, if they, obviously they need to win to advance, but they need to like play a really good game in like, if they advance, for me to, believe that they've, turned a corner on this. But man, it's been tough for them. It's been a real tough road, and I wasn't expecting that at all.
It has. And I think one of the funny things looking at it is special teams, right? Which we thought were going to be heavily in favor of the Panthers. I believe the Panthers still don't have a power play goal in this series.
They don't. I don't remember.
Which is
it was
crazy.
Like 14, 0-14, 0-15, something like that, I think, throughout the series. Yeah, that's wild to me. It is unthinkable considering what we talked so much about this Panthers offense, Andrew, and special teams are the time for an offense to shine, and they just have not been able to put it together. I mean, full credit to the Caps and their defense and the goaltending that have kept them in this series for sure, but these are just not the Panthers that we've seen before in this regular season. And
yeah,
I don't know how to fix it other than just hoping that they all, like, they might just all be in a funk, and let's just hope they get out of it basically all at the same time, or at least like are able to do what they've been able to do at least in game 5 and just
the only Panther who doesn't seem to be in a funk is Carter Verhaeghe, who has 10 points in 5 games.
Yeah, I think
including 5 goals.
Yeah, I think he had a point on every single goal in game 5.
Talk about a statement performance of a guy who just won't let his team lose. That's incredible. But yeah, I mean, the Capitals have 6 power play goals in this series.
How many are
the Florida
Ovechkin?
Panthers 0. I don't know how many goals Ovechkin has, actually.
I know TJ Oshie's been really good in this series.
Which is a surprise. I feel like that's the big thing is like coming into this series, I thought the Washington Capitals were like the first or second weakest team in the playoffs. And a lot of their guys who have looked kind of washed have been really strong. TJ Oshie leads the team with 5 goals in 5 games. Ovechkin only has 1 power play goal in the series, 5 assists.
Wow.
So it's been a weird situation. Like Washington's kind of getting contributions from everyone, and strangely, the Panthers, like their best players, haven't really done a lot. Like Jonathan Huberdeau has been almost non-existent, and I think I give Ekblad a little bit of a pass defensively
because he was injured.
Yeah, he was injured so long, it's going to take him a while to get back up to speed. But Mackenzie Weegar as well has not been great defensively. So there's a lot of things going wrong with Florida. But let's move on to New York and Pittsburgh, because as much as Pittsburgh has been a good story getting through it without Tristan Jarry and without Casey DeSmith, and Louis Domingue with his spicy pork and broccoli has become, a meme. I don't know if you saw, Mary, but the Penguins at the games in Pittsburgh served spicy pork and broccoli to the media.
I didn't. That's really funny.
Yeah, that's like leaning into, that's amazing. Like, I love that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
But Domingue got lit up by the Rangers in game 5. But the biggest determining factor in that game was that Sidney Crosby left in the first period with an injury off of a chicken wing elbow from Jacob Trouba.
It was the second period, but yes.
Was it second period? Okay.
Yeah, second period.
It was the first period that he got an elbowing penalty against Jake Gensel. So there's a bunch of Rangers fans saying, oh, that's not Jacob Trouba. He wouldn't do that. And it's like, but the elbow that he did earlier in the game kind of says that he would do that.
Yeah.
But to me, it looked like he went for a stick check on Crosby, missed, and then tried to get a piece of him with his elbow. And that's how most elbows in the NHL happen. It's how most knees in the NHL happen. But it's an easy suspension to me. And the fact that the Department of Player Safety did nothing is maddening.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we don't know how long Crosby's going to be out. And also, he has a history of concussions. And I know that the NHL doesn't really take those outside factors into account because I want to keep it like a more level playing field. But it's still dangerous. It's really, really dangerous, especially on somebody like Crosby. And it just sucks to have him out. Like, he's been like, he always turns back the hands of time in the playoffs, always and forever. And it's been incredible to watch. And we don't know how many more years we're going to get with him. So he just makes.
He's been incredible this series too.
Yeah. And like the moment he was out of the lineup, the Penguins just like collapsed on themselves. And like that speaks so much to what Crosby brings to this Penguins lineup. And it'll be a shame if he's out for the rest of the series because we don't know. At least as of Thursday, I haven't seen anything from the Penguins officially. We probably won't know until Friday around game time if he's skating or even morning skate and stuff like that. Just like, yeah, it should have been at least a 1-game suspension. And now New York is 1 game back in the series. Have a little bit of momentum from, the win. And if Crosby isn't back and Jarry isn't back, that's 2 of the Penguins' biggest players, especially because Crosby's in such a major factor in this series. Yeah, it is but we say this time and time again with the Penguins, they always have that next man up mentality, but it will be it'll be tough to overcome this if you're the Penguins because, you lose 2 of your best players, but Crosby could be back. They could have just been precautionary. They're at least taking a look at him. So we'll see.
Well, it's also the playoffs, so he might, at the end of his career, or not in the end of his career, but near the end of his career, he might decide that it's worth the risk of playing, even though he may be concussed. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau got it pretty good in Game 4. He got a hit that whipped his head really hard, and he was clearly dazed on the ice. And he went to the bench, came back out for a power play on that play, and then he was gone for the rest of that first period until I think like the last shift or so. So he went through concussion protocol and seemingly was cleared and has been fine since, but we don't know how fine a player is until later on, right?
Yeah, until basically exit interviews of when they leave, right?
And the risk of that kind of stuff is if you're playing, even with a concussion that is quote unquote mild, if you get another hit to the head.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's no longer something that you can work with. And it becomes, you could look at Bowen Byram in Colorado, right? The time that he's missed with concussions. It's such a sad story.
Yeah.
So Crosby's already been through that. It stole the prime of his career, really. 2 full seasons almost that he sat out. So it's such a huge risk, but the Penguins are close to beating the Rangers in this series. They hold control of the series still. If Tristan Jarry comes back, it helps them out. It seems like he's close. Crosby, I guess we'll see. Mike Sullivan said that he would be analyzed when they got back to Pittsburgh. Yeah. So we'll see. But
I mean, the Rangers still are on the back foot here because they're obviously, they have to win 3 straight. They won 1. They got to win 2 more in order to advance. And
Shesterkin did not look comfortable last game.
Nah, he didn't. It's funny because, he's up for the Hart. He's probably not going to win it. And he's up for the Vezina. He's clearly going to win, but he's just not looked like himself in this series, especially recently. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how it is. I think I said on Twitter, is like this series, and I think the Panthers will show me about trying to predict things about, how teams look just days before the playoffs. It's wild how much things are different in the playoffs. Like, teams are off for just like a couple of days before the playoffs begin, and then they just can't, like, it's just not the same. It is wild how what you think going into the playoffs will, matter, and it doesn't. So that's just me being salty about the fact that my predictions have just been wrong all over the place, because what a weird playoffs this has been so far. Fun, but weird. But yeah, Rangers are still in the back foot. So we'll see if they can do it. But it'll be, for the Penguins, it'll at least be a tougher road if both of those guys are out.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're going to talk about the Avalanche, the first team to advance to the second round. For the second year in a row, is this year going to be different for them? Or will they bow out again in the second round? It's, the Leafs of the second round. That's what the Colorado Avalanche are. But to the surprise of no one, they beat the Predators in the first round. But we're going to talk about that right after this. I got to tell you about BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. First, find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NLF futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So obviously no one's surprised that the Avalanche beat the Nashville Predators. I don't even think anybody's surprised that it was a sweep, especially with UC Saros out. But the Avalanche did do it without Darcy Kemper for a game and a half, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read you out a couple things here, Mary. The goal differential in this series was 21-9. Does that surprise you, or is it more what you thought was going to happen?
It's more what I thought was going to happen. A little bit surprised that the number's closer to double digits for the Predators. But, I mean, the Darcy Kemper thing was a real interesting thing that happened at the, tail end of this series. But, yeah, about what I expected.
Yeah. I mean, Colorado, Cale Makar.
Yeah.
What else is there to say?
There was that one close game. There was
ridiculous.
That one game in overtime.
Yep.
That, what was it, game 2, I think, right? I think it was game 2 that, Nashville could have possibly tied up the series.
I think, was it game 2 or game 3? Either way, it was Connor Ingram's first start.
Yeah, I think it was game 2. But I could be misremembering because it's happened what feels like a week ago now. So, but yeah, I mean, there was that one game where it was in overtime and,
Yeah, game 2.
Yeah.
He put up a .961 save percentage in game 2.
Yeah, and then I think Cale Makar had the goal in overtime.
He did.
So, yeah, I mean, just what a player, what a team. Like I said, I'm not surprised. This is not a surprising result. I think I had Colorado in 5 because, predicting a sweep just feels, they don't happen often in the NHL. It's hard to win 4 games straight in any league, and the NHL specifically feels difficult to do, but this is not a surprising result, especially, after losing UC Saros. Sucks for the Predators. I'm curious as to see where they'll go from here. They're the first team eliminated in the playoffs. I wonder what this means for their future. I don't know, what they've got in terms of contracts coming up on the books for the offseason. That's probably like a bit of a discussion later down the line, but
they've got a big one.
Yeah.
Philippe Forsberg.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah.
And if you noticed, when they got eliminated at home at Bridgestone Arena, Philippe Forsberg stayed behind when all the other players were starting to leave the ice. He kind of circled around the ice and waved at the fans. And he had a terrible series. Mm-hmm. He finally arrived in the 4th game. It was too late. Couldn't do enough. After like a phenomenal year for Philippe Forsberg.
Was he also on like weren't there rumors about him getting traded earlier in the season? Yeah. So that's definitely something to look to pay attention to as the offseason, gets closer. It is just going to be interesting times for the Predators because I feel like we talked about when we started this podcast that the Predators could have, should have sold off a whole bunch of pieces, but they didn't because they were able to make a playoff run, and that's kind of sustained them through this year. But, will management see, that they need to make some changes? Has their window, we as hockey fans know that their window has closed, but will management
Yes.
see it, I think, is the question. So, and
Let's.
Forsberg is going to be, I think, the tip of the iceberg in that regard.
I think the question for Nashville is like, how long is David Poile going to be there?
Oh yeah, wasn't he like the longest tenured GM?
Yeah, he's been
By
there
like a
since,
mile.
Yeah, he's been there since the franchise started, I believe.
I feel like we talked about this. Yeah, I feel like we talked about this, and he's been there for like a very long time, like over 20 years. And I was like, wow, really? So yeah, that was surprising to me. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point too. So not like a surprising result for us hockey people, but we'll see the fallout from this, with what they do with Forsberg, with if they trade off some more pieces this summer. So it's interesting times for the Predators because it feels like they're almost at like a crossroads. And, David Poile is a big part of that too, because he's been part of the management for so long. So interesting stuff, at least for the Predators coming this offseason, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, things look good.
Yeah, as they have before in previous years.
Yeah, and I think the positive for them is that the teams that they're going to face next are either the St. Louis Blues or Minnesota Wild, and those two teams are kicking the tar out of each other every game. Those games are wars. St. Louis currently leads that series 3-2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean but the big question for Colorado is, can they make it past the second rounds? Because that's been the big white whale for them, much in the same way. Like it feels like it's gone almost not unnoticed, but like not as talked about as something like Toronto. They've been able to win the first round, but they just have not been able to make it past, like, getting into the conference finals. It's for a team this talented, it shouldn't be that way. And they'll at least have a couple days to rest up. They're going to have the longest rest time, of any team, because at least as we record on Thursday, no team has, won their series yet outside of them. So
Yeah.
they're going to have a couple days to rest up, especially because I think like the last day of the first round can be completed is Sunday. So we won't see the second round probably till Monday at the very earliest. So yeah, there's a lot of questions for this Colorado team if they can get over that, mental hurdle, much in the same way the Maple Leafs are. But this team is just so talented, was so dominant. You would like to think that, that would go between rounds, that they would, be able to keep up this momentum. But it is a big question because they haven't been able to do it in some time. So
yeah, it's been a long time for Colorado, and part of it is like, it takes a while to rebuild and everything, but they should have beat Dallas 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Last year they were up 2-0 on the Vegas Golden Knights. I can tell you from watching the Golden Knights against the Canadiens last year that they were not unbeatable.
Yeah.
At all. And I know last year also Colorado lost their goaltender. Right?
Yeah.
So that's something that's already happened this year as well, but it appears that Darcy Kemper is ready to start for round 2. He got a high stick that went through his mask and hit him right in the eye, and his eyeball swole up.
Ugh.
So I'm once again asking the league to update their helmets for players and for goalies, because the designs that they're currently wearing are from the early 90s.
Yeah.
That's no longer the peak of technology. Let's pick it up a little bit, design modern helmets for goaltenders and for players so that we can have a few fewer of the head injuries. Like, should a stick be able to fit through a goalie's cage at any time, or a puck? We've seen pucks get wedged in there.
Yeah.
Let's get real here. I know goalies want to see, but you know what helps you see? Not losing your eye.
I was going to say, your eyeballs help you see, Andrew.
Yes.
So I'm glad you were going there.
They do indeed. All right. We're going to talk about our pop culture segment coming up in a second here. But first, I got to tell you about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all of the parts that you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts from their computer, choosing only the brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can use their easy-to-use website to find any kind of part that you can possibly think of. I had to buy a windshield washer fluid pump for my Mitsubishi Lancer Sportback, specific kind that I needed to install that because my pump blew right at the end of winter there from using it so much in the cold Canadian winter. Found it right away on Rock Auto at a great price. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is also a family business, serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts that your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So, Mary, I noticed neither of us actually have anything written down for the pop culture roulette segment.
I want to say one thing before we move on, because I think, according to this tweet I've seen, Marc-Andre Fleury's getting benched for Cam Talbot in their next game.
Ooh.
So
yeah, Fleury hasn't been great.
Yeah. So
I don't think he's been why they've been losing, though.
Nah. It's just been, you're right. They have it's really been a war of attrition in that series.
Yeah, it
it's
could be
a fun
like
series, but
Fleury's also, 37?
Yeah. I mean, he's old. We knew this.
He is.
We
all
can't
knew start every game.
Nah. But I mean, since they acquired him, Cam Talbot has been better. So it's just interesting because it's an elimination game for them. So, going to Cam Talbot, it's interesting. I almost would have thought that they would have done it sooner than that, but you got to try whatever you can in an elimination game. And if Fleury's not working, but if the Wild do lose that series, I would maybe wonder. Yeah, I mean, I would maybe wonder why didn't you try and to Cam Talbot earlier? But we don't have to talk about hockey. This is the pop culture segment, even though we don't have anything listed.
Yeah, I think there was. Have you ever heard of? There's this girl. I don't even know what started it, but there's this girl on Twitter. Her name's Zoe or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's Ziwe, and she interviews celebrities.
No, I've not heard of her.
I don't know why they do it because she just makes complete fools of them, and I don't think they're in on it. And just something was going around that I saw this morning, and she had Chet Hanks on because he has some new fitness app. And she asked him about his fitness app, and for some reason, he started doing an impression of the Joker, the Heath Ledger Joker, and she just stared at him, and then he just kept doing it and did more lines and more lines, and it's one of the most awkward things that I've
Here's the thing,
seen.
I can't watch that because I have such secondhand embarrassment for stuff like that. So I've never been able to do things like that. It just can't.
Yeah,
but
there's the highlights of this interview. She says, I asked Chet Hanks how apparently he's coined this white boy summer. She said, I asked how that was different from the past 400 summers in American history.
That's perfect. That's so perfect. You know what? I don't know who this girl is, but props to you. Keep doing what you're doing.
She seems amazing. I've only seen little snippets of the things that she does, but she seems amazing. Mm-hmm. So that's a tiny bit of pop culture stuff for you. I started watching We Own This City, which is a series made by David Simon, who made The Wire. And I believe it was Homicide: Life on the Street way back in the day. But obviously a guy that I'm a big fan of. And this is based on a true story, again, in Baltimore. Features a lot of actors who were in The Wire as well. It's 3 episodes in, and it's very much like The Wire in that there's a lot going on and a lot of characters, and it takes a lot of focus to understand what's going on. And it's also jumping back and forth in timelines following different police officers. So 3 episodes in, I'm not entirely sure where it's going and how things are going to connect, but I'm very intrigued, and the performances so far are fantastic. I don't know if you've watched The Wire, Mary.
No,
but,
I haven't. That's one of those things that's I haven't, and everybody's gonna yell at me because I've heard it's really good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is fantastic. But do you know the Baltimore accent?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Baltimore. I live close enough on the East Coast that I am vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, John Bernthal is doing a really great Baltimore accent, so it's very fun to see different people kind of roll that into their manner of speaking.
What was the I don't remember the name of the show that it was set in Philly or near Philly in like the Delco area, and whomever the actress was had a really great Delco accent and went to Wawa, and people in this area were praising it. I'm gonna have to like look it up because I can't remember. It was like one of those like drama shows. Hold on, let me look it up. Please fill for me.
Okay. So this show is following essentially a corrupt group of police officers who all got placed into the same unit in Baltimore right after the Freddie Gray murder. And it's super interesting because, you know, it talks about things that I'm passionate about, like police brutality and police corruption, and how essentially police unions and politicians and police in general do everything possible to cover up any idea of wrongdoing. And they talk about how, like, you know, rookie cops will beat some people up and then come back and their supervisors would be like, oh, you could get fired for this. And then they all laugh and they're like, no, here's how you write a report if you beat somebody up. You got to make sure that you say that you were in fear for your life, blah, 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 blah. Like, cover your tracks. And then it's fine. And it's like, wow, okay. This is disgusting.
Okay.
It makes you really mad, but it's really compelling.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes, you know, watching TV like that is compelling. Makes you angry, but is compelling. All right. So it was Mayor of Easttown with Kate Winslet, who had who went to Wawa and had this you know, I don't know, said something to the effect of like, you know, it was really cool. I don't know. She liked going to Wawa and was like, yes, justice. Wawa is superior. But I don't have anything pop culture other than that. That's just what it reminded me of when you said the Baltimore accent. I remember people around this area, or at least like, you know, in the local news and stuff, they were like, is Kate Winslet's accent good? But she does like Wawa. So it also reminds me of when I've seen a viral clip of Harry Styles when he had a concert in Philly. He said, Wawa, baby, Wawa. And I think about that constantly. It's just that he was just yelling it to the crowd. So Wawa's forever in my heart. And honestly, today is my Friday, and it has been a long week for me. So the more I talk about Wawa, the more I want to get it for lunch. So I think that's what I'm going to do after we're done recording. I have nothing in terms of pop culture. I've been so busy between taking care of my friend's dogs. I've hardly had the time to really just like sit down and do stuff for myself. So I'm looking forward to this weekend when I will be able to just sit down and relax, watch some hockey. I think this weekend, because my friends and I are continuing to watch movies, we finally spun on a movie I wanted to show my friends, which is Rent, the movie musical. So I'm looking forward to, you know, rewatching that for the first time in a long time, and enjoying some good yet sad movie musical content, because, you know, it's also very apt in this day and age still. So
Yes,
have you ever seen Rent the movie?
No, I have not. I know what the
Ooh.
story is about,
Mhm.
like in the AIDS crisis, but I haven't actually seen it.
It's very good. It features people such as Idina Menzel in, you know, prominent roles. So it's a good movie.
Makes sense in a musical.
Yeah, this is true. Highly recommended though. It's very good. Like I said, very apt to the times. Also good songs. So I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to rewatching this weekend.
Sounds good. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for making the Cross-Check NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. Now, make your second listen Locked On NHL. From first-round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear your latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. And if you have extra time, hey, make your third listen Locked On Canadiens, because I was on there twice this week with a good friend of the show, Laura Saba, talking about the Canadiens winning the draft lottery and the issues facing their rebuilds, what kind of stuff you could think of for the Montreal Canadiens. We talked about it. So it's all those shows, including ours, are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week.